And welcome back to another episode of the Choose954 Podcast, episode 88, with Hollywood-based curator, collector, and our upcoming AAF CreativeZen speaker, Jeremiah Heller, from his beautiful end-to-end gallery here in downtown Hollywood off of Harrison Street. If you didn't know about Choose954, we started a social movement a few years ago to cultivate culture and community in Broward County, keep people in the know with all the great things that are going on, to make this a better place to live and not just a better place to vacation because we live here. So the point of the podcast is to connect you with interesting people like him that do important things in the community. And you'll find out, if you haven't been on one of our art walk tours, that art and this gallery serves a great purpose in the community. So without much further ado, for those that are not familiar with you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself at a high level and how you kind of got started in the arts on this journey?
Well, thank you, Evan. Thanks for coming today. Like Evan said, my name is Jeremiah Heller. I am award-winning curator and owner-operator of End-to-End Gallery here in downtown Hollywood, Florida. So my journey starts actually going back to pre-2008 when I was actually teaching scuba diving here in South Florida. I was working for South Beach Dive and Surf as a PADI Master Scuba Diver trainer. In 2008, we had the market crash, and all of a sudden the tourist industry shifted. There wasn't the bookings, it wasn't the interest, so I started looking for ways to subsidize my income. And my wife was actually working for a gallery in Aventura, and a friend of a friend got me a job in there with her, and started working there, and which turned out to start off being a part-time job, literally in the back, cold calling, trying to drum up business during the economic crash between 2008 and 2009, and started literally at the bottom and slowly worked my way onto the sales floor. And the gallery I worked at had a massive inventory, 10,000 different pieces, 1,000 different artists, from major blue chip artists from Andy Warhol, Basquiat, Keith Haring, Dali, Picasso, to some of the tax haven art, Maimone, Tarkay, other.
You got a wide
exposure of art, and we got to buy, sell, and trade. So it was a constant researching, learning how to research, learning how to appraise, learning what to buy, at what price to buy it at, and then you got the other side of it and seeing what's selling and what people were buying versus what items we bought that didn't sell. And the main reasons why something doesn't sell typically is the price. If the owner is attached to it and the price is too high, and typically it's not going to sell. But so started literally at the bottom, and worked from 2009 all the way till 2020, so 11 years in a fine art gallery. Worked my way to the bottom, worked my way to the top as being the gallery director, working with the owner on multi-million-dollar acquisitions, multi-million-dollar sales, setting up booths, traveling,
art fairs,
from the logistics, the packing. He gave me one heck of an education.
Amen. I'd say so. Were you previously into art before that point?
No, I grew up. I was born in North Carolina. Grew up in St. Louis. Went to university on an athletic scholarship.
What'd you play?
I was track and field and cross country.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was athlete, and my freshman year I was in Iowa, and then my sophomore year I was at Central Missouri State. I was following around a coach who was at the time the Olympic triathlon coach. And so I was just interested in him and his program, but unfortunately I got injured. They put me in the pool to rehab, and that's where they were doing scuba classes.
Oh.
And so I transitioned. So I was like, you know what? I'm in the pool anyway. This is going on. So I got scuba certified actually in Missouri, and started diving with a local dive shop there, worked my way all the way up to instructor level actually in Missouri, in lakes and dams and quarries, and doing deep dives and ice dives and crazy wreck dives. And It was then it was my junior year of university. I took a break, got a job with Club Med, and moved to the Bahamas. And I was on the Bahamas for about 6 months. Then a hurricane came, wiped out the club.
Oh, damn.
And then they sent me to Mexico, where I lived in Mexico for 6 months. Then they had me as a lifeguard, and I was like, what am I doing in Mexico as a lifeguard? I thought I was teaching scuba diving. So
Right.
went back home. Went back to university. Then Barry University here in Miami was advertising for their underwater scuba diving professional. You can get a degree in it. And I was like, oh, well, I'm already doing this. This could be awesome. So went from St. Louis back to down here to Miami. And yeah, the rest is...
I did not know all of that. And that is interesting. And one of the reasons I love doing this podcasting thing is because like everybody has a different dotted line path in life. You know, there's no like one path. I always like to say, you know, when we were growing up in our generation, they would say like, do what the book says to do. You should go to school and you should get a job.
It wasn't, school didn't, I went to university for a long time. I ended up getting my degree at Barry, but it was through adult continuing education. It wasn't until I was at working in the arts industry, where I was with my now.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. With my with my not then wife, but with my girlfriend at the time, and she was kind of my support system through it all. You know, we were working together, got through school, graduated finally, and it was great.
Amen. So you had some support with getting in the arts. Thankfully, you had a great partner. Could you tell us a little about the story of how she kind of supported you with getting in the arts?
So, well, we worked together in the art gallery, and you know, you always take a little bit of work home. You can always talk about things. So that in itself was helpful. When we met at Barry University, and she actually got a 6-month study abroad, and so I went along. And why not? And we were in Florence for 6 months, and she got an internship at Palazzo Vecchio, doing the hidden passage tours. And so she got to learn where all the hidden passageways, what paintings to pull out that reveal a secret passage, and got to take people all the way to the floating roof at the top. So, which was like a really cool design, where the roof literally floats. So if it ever gets hit by a catapult or a bomb, that it won't collapse the roof onto the building. It's completely like its own self-sustained.
Wow.
And just all the different Renaissance masterpieces. It was a great experience living in Italy. For both of us, we really got to walk away from it realizing we did not want to specialize in Renaissance art. We got a taste. It was good. It was fun, but we really wanted to focus on our specialty, which was 1964, modern contemporary. I always had a strong interest within the urban contemporary market. So right when I started working for the gallery in Aventura, it was a key time in the art world, because you had this huge crash that happened. So with any crash, you get markets that get affected. And so there were definitely art markets in the art world that got affected. And I got to see which markets held. Your major blue chip, your Warhols, your Herrings, your Lichtensteins, the major names that are still dominating auction records today at Christie's and Sotheby's. But what emerged was kind of this against the system, and which made way for the urban contemporary, which was the graffiti. And so it was where Banksy was first coming on the scene through Angelina Jolie at Barely Legal in 2008, 2009, and when Christina Aguilera bought his first painting for $1 million, and it really kind of like threw the main art world for a spin, because now you had it opened up this door for this new young group of artists who were kind of against the establishment, against the major galleries, against being represented, because they had this great new tool, the internet, where they could build their own website. They can create an Instagram, social media, build a following,
Yep.
and sell their own art directly. And they had the supply systems were out there, the ability for them to order through Uline to get the tubes. It was pretty reasonable and affordable for them to print their work, or even do silk screens, or even do original spray paint works on paper and do multiples. There was just this whole new way for artists to make money. And so in that time period when I was buying for the other gallery and I really dumped in to this particular field of interest, like my gallery owner was like, what are you doing? These artists are nobody, they're going nowhere, this is a waste of time. And that was kind of the speech I got from 2010 to 2015. And while I was buying for stuff for him and that stuff was selling and he was kind of seeing what I was doing, I was also buying for me. I'd buy a couple pieces here, a couple pieces there, directly from the artist, and slowly built my collection over that decade while I was working. And it was fun. It was cool. We got to meet a lot of these artists. We got to see, it was neat around 2015 when all of a sudden Wynwood Walls was at its peak of this new environment in Miami. Come and see what we've taken over the RC Cola factory. We rebranded it. We built this new huge convention center down here. We're going to let it be a free art space. Let anybody come in and paint and do walls and create. And, that's all good and stuff until someone spends $20,000 on a mural and then the next day it gets painted over and then they get upset. But, that's the spirit of what happened in Wynwood. It's how that area was built, how it was advertised.
Interesting.
And from that, it's just spun a whole cult following within the art market of these. You have some of these artists, these urban contemporary artists, who have split from the urban contemporary world and gone on to become more of a blue chip, high commodity that you'll see at major auctions. And you've seen like a whole other category or auction houses created, the urban art category, where they'll just keep on selling a lot of the same stuff at auctions each and every month, but the category still exists.
Interesting. That 2015, that was right around the time, right before maybe 2014, when I first went to Wynwood and saw the profound impact of what it could do for that city, that community, and redeveloping. And then that's actually was my foray into art.
It's amazing. You can see the Wynwood, a place where nobody would go. Nobody even thought of going. You want to go hang out in Wynwood? No. But now look at what it's become. I mean,
it's created the quote unquote Wynwood effect, which, since we are at a very interesting time here in Broward County with the arts, with Flagler Village's Fat Village Art District just getting torn down to be developed into condos, so now it's Flat Village. Nobody was living in those warehouses, so it technically didn't really, let me not get into the G word conversation, but it served a great purpose, and it showed what I gleaned from the example of Wynwood is the power of the arts and the artists that were there in those inexpensive warehouses that made it a destination initially, from the way I'm being told the story secondhand, that collectors who were real estate developers, the George Perez's, the Moishe Manas, the Craig Robbins, the Tony Goldmans, they went to support the artists. And then through that process of touring these art studios in these inexpensive warehouses that the artists could afford to have, that inevitably brought development, which unfortunately, yes, the same warehouse that my business partner used to chip in $100 a month to rent now sells for $40 million. It's not a clear path, dotted line, but the arts have the power to revitalize communities, as they have in Asheville, as they have in Soho, as they have in Nashville, and many communities throughout the world. And thankfully, tying it back here to Hollywood, the arts do play a big part. We do have a downtown Hollywood mural project. We do have an arts park. We do have a great art and culture center with one of the best curators around in the area, Megan Kent. So there are some things here. And I like to tell people on the art walk tours that we lead every third Saturday night of the month during the downtown Hollywood Art Walk, which starts right here at N10 Gallery at 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock. We talk about the importance of art, because art could be storytelling, art could be history, art could be interior design, art could be an investment. I would like to, if you'd be so kind to share from your experience, how you started, very humble beginnings, $150, and how art has had an impact on your life, your career, your family, and everything, and now Hollywood, because you have this beautiful gallery here, how you were able to start with very humble beginnings to build to this space and some of the works that we'll show here after that.
So it literally started with watching what we were doing in the gallery in Aventura and kind of following my own interest in this new market that was building. And so my first piece that I bought was a Mr. Brainwash print. You go to his website, you just had to be there right at time, right there at 12 o'clock for the release. And you could go and you could check out, and you could buy directly from Brainwash. At the time, it was very inexpensive. It wasn't a crazy cost. We're spending thousands of dollars. It was very affordable. And we were getting paid an hourly wage. So, we could take a $600 a week paycheck, spend 25% of it, and get a nice art, starter collection. We were for that. And so that's kind of how it started. And it went from one piece to three pieces to 5 pieces. Then we sold a piece. And then from that sale, it just kind of spiraled. We never tried to take art money and turn it into, use any money from art for living. So we kept the art money separate. Anything that we sold in art, we tried to buy another piece of art. When a piece sells, we try to, it all goes back to buying more and more art. We don't pull that draw out for ourselves. And that's where a lot of people make that mistake in collecting, where if you can avoid having to do that and you can just keep on building more inventory, the bigger your collection will grow, clearly.
Are you, at whatever level you feel comfortable of sharing, to what level in terms of the artwork or in terms of the inventory or whatever you feel comfortable sharing publicly, which you do obviously on the Art Walk Tour? This is Akuda, one of the top, post-graphism, urban contemporary artists in the world. To what level has the collection grown?
Well, there's a lot of tips to collecting, and that we'll get into my 10 tips of collecting on November 10th at.
Yes, we will.
When we talk more there at NSU's library. But some key points when you're buying is like Ryan Travis Christensen, for example. This is a Chicago-based artist who has literally kind of taken over the art world by storm since 2018 with the blossoming of this new modern contemporary movement that got kicked off. He is got major representation, including like Pace Gallery in New York City. Wow. He did a release with Pace, and he's a young guy. His medium of choice is graphite, doing drawings. This is actually an edition of 10, where it's a lot of satire, humor. Each one of these pieces had unique elements to it. So on this piece, the unique elements: the nose, the razor blade, the homage to Invader. And he kind of changed it out to kind of give it that funny, there's always that dark, funny twist to his pieces. But he does have that blue chip representation. He is doing museum shows. So that does signals to collectors and buyers that this is an artist who's young, emerging, but could definitely be a good long-term investment.
Wow. So much there. let's put this down before I drop it. Appreciate that. This is a great time to tell you that if you haven't been to the Art Walk and the Art Walk Tour, which does start here, we do the intro here. This is the greatest space. It's the greatest collection. Jeremiah is one of the most knowledgeable, passionate, kind, courteous, down-to-earth gallerists I've ever met. I think most people ever meet. Super knowledgeable, super generous with your time and your insight, not just on this podcast, but if you come, he will tell you, appraisal of a work, viewpoints of a work, thoughts and ideas on collecting and the collection and so on and so forth. So it's amazing, and I'm super grateful as an arts advocate and as someone that has had art change my life to have you in our community holding the space physically and holding the knowledge that you share with your customers, patrons, visitors. It's a beautiful thing because you've helped so many people just on the tours alone that we've been doing now for the last couple of years, educate them about what you often introduce that a lot of people are not familiar with auction.
So we specialize in museum inducted, auction tracked and traded artists from all around the world, with an emphasis in modern contemporary and urban contemporary. So we were kind of talking about the urban contemporary up to 2015, and then we had COVID happen. So we had all these urban markets that were going to auction, now getting recognized by the major auction houses, starting to get picked up through major representation, through institutionalized galleries in New York City, and then COVID. So now all of a sudden, like we experienced in 2008, now all these artists who are self-promoting, self-releasing, I don't need representation, all of a sudden don't have access to the supply chain. They can't get tubes in, they can't get paper, they can't print, they can't release, they can't get their art out there as they were in the previous years. Whereas that's when these mega institutions, these mega galleries who had endless amounts of money prior started signing all these new wave of young artists and really kind of took back control of that foothold that they lost from 2010 to COVID. And they brought in artists like Ryan Travis Christensen, many of the other artists that we have coming up at Red Dot for Art Basel. Every single artist in that show. So 99% of all art, unfortunately, will not go up in value. Okay, so when you think of that, there's a lot of art out there, and there's a lot of artists out there, and that's why only there's that 1% that will go up. And that's where you're looking at your red chip and your blue chip pieces. Those are your investment pieces. And you're dealing with young, emerging artists who have mega representation, and there's a buzz about them. They get that red chip status, and every piece that we'll be displaying this year at Red Dot is a red chip artist. Their prices have already gone up. And that's a big thing. They're alive. There's a young artist born after 1980, and they're following on the same tracks as some of these blue chip artists like Warhol and Haring and Koons and all these other mega giants. And it's got a lot of people wondering to see, but when you have Alman Reich and Anton Kern and these major galleries behind these artists, you definitely think there's going to be longevity.
It's interesting that your purview, and you triggered something. You mentioned the signaling, and it signals to collectors that these are signs. And you've educated me so much from just listening to you and getting to interact with you about art as investment, and how you will intentionally acquire work with the goal of it appreciating as an investment.
The most important rule number one when collecting art is buy what you like, because there is no crystal ball. I have no crystal ball, and just because something's hot now doesn't mean that it's going to stay hot over a period of time. But it's, for that same token, something that might not be hot now could be the hottest thing 10 years from now, and you could sell it for what you paid for it, and then you just lost something that could be worth a fortune down the road. That's always the gamble that you take when selling a piece. There's certain rules that go along with collecting, and especially there's a lot less looser rules when it comes to buying and selling prints. You know, people buy, sell, and trade prints pretty regularly. It's a 2-year hold. When it comes to buying and selling originals, and especially the higher the the ladder you climb, they expect you to hang on to the pieces. If you sell the piece, they expect for you to let them know that you're planning on putting it on the market. And so sometimes easier to buy from a collector directly, or we buy at auction, like in the case of the Akuta here. This past summer, because of the war in Ukraine and all the rising tensions and everything with all the inflation talk, people haven't been spending at this like they were doing during the pandemic when everyone was getting free money and working from home and not going on vacation, and finally looking around their house and I have white walls everywhere, and they were putting pieces up. So it was an opposite for our industry, whereas we are now feeling the post effects, where people have decorated their homes and now they are vacationing and they're traveling, and the emphasis might not be so much on building out their collection. It's more on lifestyle.
You've really educated me a lot on many things. The market factors I just wasn't privy to, because I'm not really on that side of the art transactional side of things. I'm more on the arts advocacy side of things. But one thing you've really educated me a lot on, and you just mentioned I'd like you to further elaborate on, is prints and additions of prints. So let's just pretend that, or assume that maybe they don't know what a print is, or an edition, or limited edition. How would you frame up, and why is it a good investment or even a good entry point for some people into collecting to start with prints?
It's where I started collecting. I started collecting myself in prints, and prints are almost easier for collectors to collect in, because let's say if there's a particular artist that you like, Akuta, and let's say he does an edition of 50, he releases it for $500 for each print. Whereas to buy an original, you're going to spend $25,000. So it's more affordable, obviously, for a collector who wants to collect their work, wants to have a piece of theirs on their wall, to buy an edition. Editions are art. They are limited. They're hand signed by the artist. I typically, if it's best, if it's an edition of 150 or less, then it's truly limited. If it's over 150, it's considered an edition multiple. But Warhol, most of his are editions of 200. But he had that philosophy that art is for everyone. He wanted to get his art to the masses, and that was back when his pieces were $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 each, not $50,000, $100,000. So, and you can see great equity in prints. Look at Banksy. His prints from 2006 to 2008 were a few £100 each, and an unsigned Girl with Balloon was 150 pounds on release. And at the peak of the market, it was 300,000. And it's an edition of 600. It's not limited. It's an edition multiple. At the peak, they were selling for 300,000. Now, unfortunately, the same piece a few years later is down to 70,000. But just the Banksy market really, it got built up in a totally different way, but there is just too much out there for the market to support. And that's why it's important to buy limited. If there's editions of 35, editions of 50, editions of 75, they're going to be in low quantities, which collectors are going to hang on to. There might be 2, 3, 4, 5 circulating on the market, but it's going to be listed higher, guaranteed than what you paid for on release.
Interesting. And also interesting that just so these two artists that you mentioned, Akuda and Banksy, I've known them as muralists, as public artists, street artists. I love Akuda. There's two Akuda murals. There's at least two Akuda murals in Palm Beach County, but I never would have thought that I'd have the ability to have an Akuda piece of art in my house. But now, through prints, you can have an Akuda, or without, because also I'm sure to pay him to do a mural, if you can even get him, probably $100,000 starting.
Yeah.
Easy. So it's an interesting foray. As you mentioned, it worked for you. It worked for a lot of people to get in the market. One other last collecting point that I would love to grow in our community is this secondary art market, the resale market, especially with some of the local artists that we know, love, and want to support. How are you involved in the secondary art market? How can an aspiring collector or even potentially an aspiring artist or arts advocate get involved or further support or participate in the secondary art market?
So the secondary art market, it means that are pieces that have been owned and that are being resold. So I can help if you already have a great collection and you're looking to trim down your collection, you have too much, I can help you place it on Artsy, place it on our website, help market it, help sell it, and that help find a buyer. A lot of it comes back to pricing. You have to make sure you're not setting the market, that you're actually pricing it at a price point that someone's willing to pay.
Yeah, I appreciate that because, when I go to like New York, LA, Chicago, they talk about the secondary art market because these are true art markets. And we're trying to do our best to make this an art market. And we have some very talented artists between Hollywood and Zero Empty Spaces and some of the people that we know, Tiago. There is definitely a potential for it. I think some of what we've been missing in Broward County and in Hollywood is the buyers and the collectors to participate in the secondary art market. So I have some thoughts and ideas that we might hope to bring to the future of like framing an event, framing something to induce secondary art market transactions, to get people knowledgeable and conscious of the secondary art market. Because, I have some art, unfortunately, that I have more art than I could put on my wall. So some of it's at my parents' house, some of it's in storage. So I would like to probably offload it because I don't have a...
And that's a common issue with most collectors, and especially as collectors here in South Florida as they age. People begin to age out. They sell their 3-bedroom houses, their 3-bedroom condos, and move into a 1-bedroom, and downsize. They make their life simpler, and we see that all the time down here in South Florida. But what do I do with all these pieces? What do I do with all these extra, pieces that I don't have a place for? Have they gone up? Is there, did I miss the selling point? Or is there a huge amount of value now in these pieces? And you can always call me. You can send me a text. I can take a look at what you have and tell you usually within minutes if you have something. It's Google. It's one heck of a tool. We just do a quick,
But you know how to decipher.
Yeah, but you can it's simple. You do a reverse image search, and then from there it really breaks down. But it's having the subscriptions, having paid the $1,200 to $1,500 to access the art database that year, so you can go and pull up every single auction result, and so you can actually see where the price is sold, where the peak of this market is, and kind of forecast what's going to happen. Norman Rockwell, great example. Americana artist, well-known, household name. And go into the Midwest, you see holotypes in probably, many people's homes. But unfortunately, even though he's such a major name, and his originals sell for a ton of money, you can get a signed holotype for a couple $100. So it's still, there has to be all the right dynamics in play. It's a great example of an art that's known and accepted, but it's aged out. There's no one wants to have that early 1930 Americana style in their South Florida home.
the one that comes to mind that people joke around a lot about, and he's had success and he's made millions of dollars, is Brito.
Brito is a South Florida. He's right here in our art park in Hollywood, Florida. He's got the Rothschild butterfly. He's everywhere. Bright colors from Brazil, it bodies all things that are Miami.
But not for everybody anymore.
Not for everybody. You go.
Yeah.
I gave a Brito bear to my stepmother and my sister back in 2012 for Christmas. They didn't know any clue who it was. It just didn't. It did not translate. From St. Louis to Miami, it takes a while for some of these artists to make it to the Midwest, where you'll still find Peter Lick galleries and you'll still find Thomas Kincaid galleries, and those are the types of things that you have to be wary of when you're talking about editions and collectivity. Peter Lick, editions of 900, 950. You get into these really, really big edition sizes with a really big primary price tag, and then you go back to resell it later, you find yourself surprised.
Or if you're educated and if you get 10 tips on collecting, then you might not be so surprised. So if you would like to learn more about this fascinating young man, get some inspiration, get some connection to the community, as I was able to do almost 8 years ago, we still host a free monthly breakfast lecture series, mini TED Talk, every second Friday morning of the month inside, coincidentally, the Cotilla Gallery, inside the Alvin Sherman Library on the second floor on the campus of NSU, Nova Southeastern University in Davie, Florida, where my business partner is president of the board, and we try to support and bring in new speakers and new events to bring in new traffic and audiences to the library, which is a beautiful...
It's a great space.
Great space.
It's a great space.
So it's a free event. The doors open at 8:30. The introductions and the talk starts at 9. You're out of there by 10. If you need something to tell your boss on why it's okay for you to miss the first half of the morning of work, one Friday morning a month, I have a long list of truthful things that you'll be gaining insight and connections that you'll bring back to your team, to your office, to your community, or whatever you serve. So that's CreativeZen. It's every second Friday morning this month. It's going to fall on November the 10th. You can find out more on Choose954 and CreativeZen social media. We record and archive all the talks, so you can go back and listen to previous inspirations from brilliant speakers and brilliant artists that we've had participate previously. I have another event that I would invite you to right before CreativeZen. Actually, it'd be good to come. The L.A. Lee Mizell YMCA, which is one of the newest and most beautiful YMCA in Fort Lauderdale. They have a Victory Black Box Theater, which used to be the host venue of CreativeZen for a period of time. They have a monthly art film community event where they ask people like myself and Andrew to curate and screen a film. And I chose something, I don't know if I've asked you if you've seen this, but Boom for Real. It's a documentary about Basquiat's teenage years.
I saw that.
Okay.
That looks like an amazing documentary.
It is. And the reason why it's relevant, and the reason why, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, I was so moved by Radiant Child, which was not the first Basquiat documentary, but it was one of the great Basquiat documentaries. When I first saw it, I watched it 11 times in 10 days. And I was just so blown away by how they framed in that documentary how New York City, at that time, late 70s, was burning down. It was, dead people in the streets, and it was a shithole. And it's outlined in the documentary.
Apocalyptic. People thought it was apocalyptic period, and even Keith Haring, he did his Apocalypse series, and it was about, they thought it was the end of times in that era in the late 90s. They lost Warhol, they lost Basquiat, then Haring died, then all the people that were connected to him passed away. Tina with Studio 54. It's just everybody who made that world what it was, minus a few.
Correct. But the documentary,
Sharp, Futura.
The documentary shows the crew that did make it. The Keith Harings, Kenny Sharps, Andy Warhol. The one guy that's in there a lot is Fab Five Freddy.
Okay.
And then there's other, Glenn Close. There's, the Canal Zone. There's a lot of that context. So it really shows how the arts helped revitalize Manhattan, Soho. And you think, so that was Radiant Child. And then the Boom for Real which is what we're going to be showing on Wednesday, November the 8th at 6 o'clock at the Victory Black Box Theater at L.A. Lee Mizell YMCA in Fort Lauderdale. Boom for Real is about Basquiat's teenage years, which is more in the 70s. And it really highlights and shows the opening scene is a wrecking ball in black and white going through New York City and knocking down a building as the buildings were burning down. And the opening monologue is Gerald Ford, the president, saying, "We are not going to bail Manhattan out. We're going to let it burn down." And you think about it, 50 years ago, they were going to let Manhattan, it's crazy. So when I put that into context as to where we live, in a place that's beautiful, where there's no shortage of money or disposable income, we just need a little bit more support for the arts. We just need to foster some more art collectors. We just need to create more platforms and further more platforms like Zero Empty Spaces to support more artists. Like, our problems aren't really that bad here in Broward County.
No. And, it's great. Like, we have these programs that you offer, the Downtown Hollywood Art Walk, which we do the third Saturday each month, and each and every month we have a new show for the Downtown Hollywood Art Walk. And then this is the time of year that you want to join our mailing list.
Yeah.
So visit End to End Gallery, join our mailing list, because we send out free tickets each and every year to Red Dot down at the Manna Convention Center in the heart of Wynwood. It's Red Dot Spectrum. It's a great fine art show where you get to see some secondary market dealers at Red Dot mixed in with a lot of emerging talent. And when local artists ask, where can I go to highlight and showcase, there's no better fare than Spectrum for a young emerging artist, because booth space is affordable. They have a lot of different options, and it's a great way to get your name out there. In addition, we have, during Art Basel Week, we are taking over the SLS Hotel in South Beach and Hyde Beach, and we're doing a takeover with Atomic, the famed Miami legend Atomic. We have a 20-foot mural going on in front of their brass doors right there in the front of the building. He has a permanent activation. Bruno with Metro Signs, partner.
Metro Raps.
Metro Signs,
yeah,
Metro Raps. He's partnering up with us. He's going to be doing a massive Atomic for the bottom of the pools, some window wraps, and of course Atomic is going to be painting the Duck on December 8th between 7 and 10. And if you would like to attend that event, let me know and we can get you some ticket information available.
I will be there. Which is also cool because, like, Red Dot, well, it's a $50 ticket generally, something like that.
It's not cheap, and it allows the people of Hollywood and our past clients to come to a show and see at Red Dot. It's just like being at the other shows where it's got the 12-foot walls, the big installations, and it's just a great show. Easy to get in, easy to get out. There's parking right there at the Manna where you're not fighting to get on the beach. You're not sitting in traffic for 3 hours trying to get across 395. But
we do it every year.
But you do it every year, It's how that Friday is going to be with the Atomic event that starts at 7. I still haven't quite figured out how I'm going to make it from Wynwood over to South Beach on Friday, but
they have that Uber plane now.
What?
It was a seaplane. I don't know if they're bringing it back this year. They did it.
I was hoping they had a water taxi.
I think they also have a water taxi. We're going to have to look into that because transportation is a problem. But free tickets help. Free art walk tour. Free consultations.
You need packing, hanging.
We didn't even talk about comics.
I own a comic book store.
Which some of you have seen if you've come for the art walk tour.
You've seen, but we opened up a Cards and Comics, 6780 Pines. We are not your typical comic book store where you come in and do subscriptions. We are back issue only. So if you were looking for a 1963 Avengers 1, or looking for that ASM 129 first appearance of Punisher, or those early Fantastic Fours, we have them all. We have over 200 CGCs, 3,000 raw comics, toys, rare, expensive sports cards, all in Pembroke Pines, just right down on the other end of Hollywood Boulevard.
Last question we like to ask, what do you like the most about living in the 954?
It was always a dream of my wife and I's to open up a gallery here in downtown Hollywood. We used to go to Chocolate for years. We used to drive up from Aventura, go up there Sunday breakfast. That was our thing. And the dream was always to open a fine art gallery here in downtown Hollywood.
Amen.
And it's been fun. We've been down here for 4 years.
Beautiful. And from humble beginnings, a couple blocks away, over to here, Harrison Street, is the site of the Art Walk. So we're here, downtown Hollywood, just west of the Arts Park, just east of Dixie, just south of Hollywood Boulevard. A lot of great stuff coming to Hollywood. Excited to bring back Art Hollywood, which was something we launched last year during our annual, it was previously Fort Lauderdale Art and Design Week. We just rebranded and relaunched it as Lauderdale Art Week, LAW, which we're very excited for the public service announcement campaign to be, people are going to have to support the arts because it's the law. LAW, Lauderdale Art Week, so you can find out more. Art Hollywood was a great open studio tour throughout Hollywood. We activated a bunch of places in the Arts Park, had some tours. Hollywood Art and Culture Center helped support. We had over 40 artists participating. We're partnering with artists from Miami this year, Mark McCardod, who started an Art Haven project to facilitate home studio tours with collectors, verified collectors from like Fountainhead's VIP database.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so, and they have to show ID, it's all legit, verified. So, Lauderdale Art Week, the last week of January every year, the 6th annual installment. So we'll be bringing that back. You can look for more information, lauderdaleartweek.com. And, you know, still doing our walk tour every third Saturday, still doing CreativeZen every second Friday morning of the month. Tons of great stuff. If you want to find out more, log on to Choose954. I'm an open book at Evanstone13. He's a very nice guy. Very lucky and fortunate to have you here in the community. Hope you can join us on November the 10th at NSU. NSU also has some other great stuff coming on. They've brought astronauts and authors and Julia Quinn and phenomenal. Kudos to my business partner, Andrew Martineau, and the whole Circle of Friends board at the Alvin Sherman Library, who are doing some really great stuff in our community. So, and I think we are going to put together that secondary art market event, something to foster more collectors, more buyers, more sales, more transactions, more support for the arts, because we just don't like sitting still or being bored. Oh, last one. Stay tuned. We are very excited to launch e-commerce for artists through Zero Empty Spaces and make it available, because not every artist can get on Saatchi or Artsy.
It's expensive. You know, you don't. Most people don't understand how much it costs to be on Artsy, to be on Artspur, to be on First Dibs. It's a monthly subscription, and they take a percentage of the sale on top of it. So it's like bringing in a secondary partner, which, you know,
that's us.
But yeah, but they do offer buyer and seller protections, which is key, especially when selling and shipping $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 items around the world. It's nice to have some type of protection, especially when you're shipping internationally, when you don't get any from FedEx.
Amen. So we're going to have more information on that. Stay tuned. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for your support. We hope to see you on the 10th. Hope to see you down here in Hollywood. And you have a great rest of your day.